Outstanding. We are now joined by Chris Buescher with Roush Fenway Racing, and we're going to go straight into questions. Our first question is going to come from Jacob Seelman. Go ahead with your question, Jacob.
Thanks, Matt. Chris, much like your teammate was, you were in position late, thinking back to last February as well. Coming back in spite of everything that happened on that last lap, where do you sit going into this? I mean, have you thought back to how everything went down, and what's the motivation from your side of things?
Really haven't gone back and replayed that one much. I think ultimately you go into every speedway race with the same mentality, and that is to be there at the end when it matters, right? And put yourself in position. So we were both able to do that last year in the 500 and a couple of the other speedway races. So we'll keep that same mindset. You go back and you don't worry too much about the past. Try and learn from it, and see if we can improve it just a little bit. But I wouldn't say there's anything that is changing this year based off of last year. We're working hard to get our speedway cars a little bit better yet. Jimmy Finning and Roush Fenway Racing have had terrific speed on the speedways for a number of years now, so we know we're going to have a good opportunity with our Fast on Mustang to be there. It's just a matter of staying clean through most of it, trying to avoid the melees that are sure to happen, that always do, and again, just be in position at the end. That's all you can ask, and hope that it plays out just a little bit better for us this time around.
As a follow-up, you mentioned the Speedway program, which Roush's Speedway program has always been, talked about among the best. But what does the program have to do aside from the Speedways? It seems like you guys have been close to taking that next step again and getting back to where, RFR kind of was in its heyday. What do you guys need to do to take that next step?
Yeah, I wish I had the answer for you, and we could give it clear and cut and dry, and say this is what we need to win races all year long. But I don't have that one answer. With that being said, I think that we've taken some steps through the off season to better ourselves. Taking the principle that Jimmy Finning applied to the Speedway program and putting him in a position where he is helping to oversee our entire program on a larger level. It's not like he was ever disconnected, but I think that'll be something that'll be helpful for us. We have a lot of really, really sharp people working really hard to try and really dissect what it is that's holding us back at this point. And it's just a matter of trying to clean up some of these things and fine tune it. Unfortunately, without practice last year, we had a hard time getting a hold on what we needed to change to be better moving forward every week. You basically had the previous similar race. So, if you were trying to work on Texas, you were going back to Kansas as your practice session, right? So, unfortunately, we're in the same boat here. So for us trying to better ourselves and to play catch up of sorts, it's a difficult process to do in the current environment. So not that we're not working hard at it, and the sim programs have come a long way and are definitely being leaned on very heavily. We just gotta keep plugging away, and we really don't have a way to measure our success or any way to tell where we're at until we are on track this year and we get a couple races under our belt.
Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Our next question is going to come from Kelvin LaPierre. Go ahead with your question, Kelvin.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Chris, for being here today. So NASCAR released their schedule. They're deeming this the most exciting year in NASCAR and all of that. There's six road courses this year, and then and then the Bristol Dirt race. Which race are you most excited about, and do you think these changes are going to be good for NASCAR going forward?
Yeah, I think I'm excited about all of the schedule changes. I say that with a little bit of caution on the Bristol Dirt race. Bristol Concrete is my favorite racetrack, and I do hate to lose one of those races. On the flip side of that, I've wished since my first year in cup racing that we had a dirt race. So careful what you wish for, I guess. But it is exciting. I think it's going to be really neat going to Bristol and trying something new out there. Having the World of Outlaws there ahead of time to run the track in basically and get some good racing in, try and set the track to where we'll be in good shape. I think that hopefully should help. I have no experience with dirt, so I'm completely out of my league talking about it. But and then talk about the road courses, Nashville, going to Coda. So that one is another home track for me, which is pretty neat. You usually just have the Texas race, but it's actually even closer to where my family's at now. So that'll be a nice trip to be able to see some family and then also run a new road course, something that's just a really remarkable facility. And, you talk about the Indy road course had some really good success with the Xfinity series in the past, or just here recently, really. So I think that'll be exciting. And, I think it's good. I think that I'm good with 6 road course races. I don't want to do a whole lot more of it. I think that's a good number, and I want to stick to ovals. That's what we were all raised and came into this sport to do. But that being said, a little bit of road racing along the way is a lot of fun and a good way to break up our season along the way.
And then just one quick one. You said you'd have limited experience on dirt. Do you have any plans to run a couple of dirt races before you get to Bristol?
I am hoping to be able to do a little bit of dirt late model racing. So again, the environment has made it hard to do that. But with that being said, we are going to work on trying to get a little bit of seat time in there before we get to that race. Being my previous dirt experience is 1 sport mod race, a handful of Legends car races, and 4 ARCA races on dirt. So pretty limited. So that one's kind of looked at as an interesting opportunity.
Thanks, Chris. Good luck next week.
Thank you.
Our next question is going to come from Jake Nickel. Go ahead with the question, Jake.
Thank you. Hi, Chris. Just touching on the new car. Kurt Busch mentioned earlier that 2 of the biggest areas that he thought still needed more work were the steering and the exhaust system. Are those areas that you share similar views to him on? And are there any other areas that you still think need some more development work this year?
So I've been in the car a lot less than Kurt, and I was in the car at Daytona by myself, right? So there was no drafting. You're not pushing with a restrictor plate on it. You're not pushing the limits of the car. So I can't give you a whole lot of good info on really what I feel like it's needing. But I will back up the steering comments that I'm sure he's made. It seemed to be very consistent across everybody who's driven that car. It just needs some fine tuning to get a better feel to it, to try and find something to make it more like what we have now. And not that you're trying to duplicate what we have. We realize what we're running is an old technology, right? But it still needs to have a similar feel or something along the same lines. And I think everybody has felt like it needs work, not just based off of the cars we're driving currently, but everybody's driven different stuff growing up. We know that when something needs attention, it's not just to try and get back to what we're used to specifically in the Cup Series right now, but it's also to get it right along the lines of different cars that we've driven in all of our careers growing up.
Great. Thank you.
Along those lines, Chris, we had a question from Wolfgang Windsor in Germany. He wants to know from your perspective about the next gen car, what is the most significant difference between the next gen car and your current iteration of the NASCAR Cup Series car?
Oh man, that'd be a tough one to really pinpoint. There's massive differences across the board. So the independent rear suspension was basically a non-issue on Daytona. That being said, I'm sure it'll be a game changer road racing. The sequential shifting was a lot of fun for me. It'll take some getting used to, but it's not going to be something that's just wildly different than what we do. It's not like it's paddle shifting or an automatic, which either of those wouldn't make much difference either, right? So, well, let's not go to automatics, but The big wheels, allowing a bigger brake package, is probably going to be what I think will be more significant than anything else. We will allow ourselves to have a much better brake package and much better cooling so that we can run hard for longer periods of time. Our races are long in terms of road racing for the most part, right? And so we have to pace ourselves in a lot of these races. I feel like, and again, I haven't run enough laps to talk intelligently on this, but I feel like we will be able to push harder from the drop of the green flag all the way to the checkered on a lot of these road races along the way.
Good deal. Our next question is going to come from Dustin Long. Go ahead with your question, Dustin.
Thank you. Chris, last year, 3 top 10s in the 4 speedway races. The year before, crashed out in 3 of the 4. Obviously, I know that there's the element of luck or so forth. Is it a case that last year you were a luckier driver, or how does a driver measure when they look at how they do, and sometimes they get wrecked out of races that maybe they didn't deserve, and sometimes they get finishes where maybe they do deserve or maybe they don't deserve?
There's an element of luck to every speedway race, and anybody who tries to downplay that is lying to themselves. There's that factor. We go speedway racing, you're that close, you are at the mercy of your own mistakes, but you are much more so at the mercy of 39 other drivers' mistakes. So the probability of being involved in somebody else's doing, it skyrockets, right? And we've for years we've argued what's safe, right? What is it? The leader safe? Is it 1 through 5? Is it 25th back is safer? And the numbers used to have a pretty clear trend, and I don't feel like they do anymore. I think a lot of our wrecks have started at the front row, whether it's first or second, and it's come from aggressive blocking, the runs that these cars have had, and I don't know there's a safe place anymore. So for it to be luck, there is an aspect of it, right? And I think what helps it is there was really good speed in our Roush Fenway cars for speedway racing, and that enables you to be able to lead a line or kind of make more of your own destiny. And I think that helped us last season, and it helped us in a lot of places. So I'm going to argue that all 4 of our speedway races were very good, and we got robbed on one there at the end. But it's something that we did a good job calculating what risk we were willing to take. Jack's pretty adamant that we're racing. Those aren't races that you ride around and try and play the numbers game at the back. And so we raced through them. We felt like the end of a stage, got really aggressive. Maybe you back out or try and give up a couple spots versus trying to get that one stage point or ending up in that 12th, 13th range and ultimately hitting a fender or causing yourself more pain. So a lot of it was a thought process, and there was a good amount of luck and being inches away from disaster several times along the way as well.
I'm curious your perspective looking at the duels next week. Certainly in the past, a lot of the cars would have already had, been out in the clash and raced in the draft and so forth. But certainly with that on the road course, that changes it. With the limited practice, it changes things. That's your Daytona 500 car. So when you look ahead to the duel, what is the challenge for the driver in protecting the car? But at some point, you've got to go out and find out what the car can do too. Where does that line, and is that line going to change this year because of some of the changes with the schedule down there?
They might. From what I can tell in the past, the clash, everybody's considered that car a throwaway, and they don't care anyway. So I've really never seen anybody care to try and save equipment, and that's ended up in bonsai moves that have just wiped out gobs of cars every year. So to run it on the road course, I'm excited to do that, do something a little bit different there. When you look at the duels, I think that I don't know that they'll change a whole lot. People always try and learn a little bit, but at the same time, it will be pretty well understood that that is the car that you want to race. Now, with that being said, we will have backups. All of us are going to bring very nice backups to the track. So there will be that that thought process that you can go out there and learn something. And if it does end up taking a turn for the worse, you'll be okay. You'll be able to prep and be ready for the 500. So I don't know that I have a good answer for you, but I wouldn't suspect that the duels would change a whole lot.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our next question is going to come from Jeff Magliachetti. Go ahead with your question, Jeff.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for joining us today. How frustrating is it when you guys are coming off the season that you guys had? How frustrating is it that your path to redemption of sorts will feature practice and qualifying at a premium? And how comforting is it to have a name like Ryan Newman working alongside of you during this process?
Yeah. So for the first half of the question, the frustration is pretty well pegged. You know, I say that with caution. So I am thankful that our season was able to finish last year. I'm impressed by the leadership of NASCAR and all the teams to be able to do that. All right, so that's my getting that out on the table. I'm not complaining about that. Now, that being said, we needed practice. First year coming back to Roush, working with Luke for the first time. You know, it was difficult to find a rhythm. We needed that practice to really just get us in the ballpark first. You know, usually you get through those big swings early on, and then once you get to fine tuning, it's not such a big deal. But we had to use the first half of the season to make large changes to try and find a baseline, and that put us way behind the eight ball. So, you know, that being said, it will be a little bit better this season, but we still need that time to run through changes and try and figure out what we are looking for as a team. So on the second half of your question, having Ryan Newman as a teammate to be able to go through a lot of that with is a huge help, right? A guy that's been doing this for a really long time, and that's my little stab at making him feel old. But also a veteran that's got a lot of information, a lot of notes, has worked with Luke in the past, so there's already a good dialogue there. And then with me working with Scott Graves in the past, it helps it all flow pretty decent. With everything being very, sorry, lost lights in here, but everything being very virtual, we don't have a lot of that face-to-face meetups that we really need to keep tuning in. So that's made it a little bit tough, but Ryan has been a huge help for me as someone that really needed help this past season and will this year as well, working on this very unique schedule we have here.
Thanks, Chris. Good luck this season.
Yep, appreciate it. If y'all don't mind, I'm going to jump up real quick. There's motion lights in here, and they just kicked off.
Let there be illumination. There we go.
There.
Good deal. Our next question will come from Marty Sakala. Go ahead with your question, Marty.
Chris, you look beautiful whether you're lit up or not. Anyway, these past few Daytona 500s, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when the big one happens. I've asked a bunch of drivers the past few days where they want to be. It seems like a bunch of them want to be in those first 2 to 3 rows. Do you want to be in front of the big one, or do you want to be behind the big one if you want to have a chance at winning in those final laps?
I would say typically in front, and I say that because I feel like that big one has steadily progressed closer and closer to the checkered flag, to the point now where if you're behind it, you really don't have time to make up that track position to get yourself in position. On the flip side of that, the wrecks are also happening farther and farther towards the front. So there's really no safe place up there. But I think if you're going to win the 500, you have no choice but to gamble and to be up towards the front and take that risk. So that's where you got to be. It's the best chance. It may not work 100% of the time. And, you know, I'll sit here and say with 100% confidence, you're going to need to be in front of it. and someone running 25th and clears everything will end up in a great spot this year. But I think that in front of it is going to be the best call. It's just a matter of if you're far enough ahead that you don't get collected, and then also if it's far enough into the race where the cars that have been saving all day don't have time to find all that track position late in the going.
Thanks for your time, man. Have a great Speed Weeks.
Thank you.
Our next question will come from Ashley McCubbin. Go ahead with your question, Ashley.
Chris, when you look back at last season, I know you talked about the frustrations, but what are some positive takeaways that you can take from what happened?
Yeah, so I haven't been real shy about the frustrations of the way we did it, but I guess to reiterate, I am thankful that our season did go back to on schedule and got to run our playoffs on schedule. So that's definitely a positive. Our sport is unique in the way that we are able to compete and stay distanced apart and keep going. When you look at the positives from our team, specifically, I guess, I think that communication got steadily better through the year as we learned how to get through some of these different changes. And I think at the end of the day, it's actually going to help us moving forward. I think we will have better communication back and forth, quicker communication, and keep everybody in the loop better so that we can be more productive as a company and as a race team. So I do think that there's some positive and some light at the end of the tunnel as far as that goes. As far as the race season and the way we want to show up to the racetrack and practice a couple times and qualify for our starting spot, I can't say that I figured out much positive about all that other than the fact that we are racing. So definitely look forward to the day we can get back to normal. But for the meantime, we are figuring out how to make the best of what we have to work with here.
And you just spoke of everything that the team is working on to get back to victory lane and running up front. Where do you feel what type of track or track in particular is most likely to be the site of that return to the front?
Obviously, the super speedways, we have a great shot, and we know that. I think you look at a lot of these new races as good opportunities as well. I'm not a road racer necessarily, but it's something that I enjoy doing, and we've been able to have good results at. So I am excited for a lot of these new road races. I'm excited for Road America is a track that I've actually got a couple of races at, and I know a large majority of the field does not. So that's something that's exciting. I know we will get practice, but that's a 4-mile track and 50 minutes of practice or an hour of practice, whatever it's going to end up being. It takes a long time to figure that one out. So I am looking forward to some of these newer places. Also Bristol, Roush Fenway as an organization has been very competitive there for as far back as I can remember. A lot of cup wins there, Xfinity wins. We were so close to getting an Xfinity win there 5 or 6 years ago. And then even with my first rookie season in the front row cars, we ran extremely well there. So that's a place we definitely look at as my favorite racetrack and also a good opportunity for us to capitalize and get back to victory lane. Unfortunately, the first one's dirt, so we don't get to take what we know to be a good track and rely on our notes to make it that way. But also it's something that'll be neat for our sport and be interesting to see how it plays out. And I do know that we're working pretty hard to try and get it figured out ahead of time.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Our next question is going to come from Stephen Toronto. Go ahead with your question, Stephen.
Chris, I'm not sure how much you've been thinking about this, but it's actually been 10 years since your first ARCA start at Daytona. You ran second to Bobby Gerhart that day, and you actually, I seem to remember you taking some flack afterwards because people thought that for whatever reason you didn't make a move for the win the last couple of laps. What do you remember about the last few laps of that ARCA race? And if you knew then what you know now, how would you have approached racing for the win in those last couple of laps differently?
Yeah, so it's funny, actually talking about this last night. how time does fly, and going back to the ARCA days with the Rulo brothers and all that I learned back then. Obviously, I do a lot different now, right? I have so much more knowledge, but that being my first speedway race, it didn't click with me that you could drag a line back and try and get a run together. I guess I do remember getting a lot of slack for that, and I didn't understand it because I trust me, at the time I knew that if I went to pull out, I wasn't going to go anywhere. Those cars did not have those big runs. You couldn't just pull out and make it work. So I had a lot of talk from people that didn't know, right? So now that being said, I didn't know a whole lot better either. There were things I could have done and tried to be more aggressive in the closing laps, but we also could have pulled out coming off of turn 4, gotten hung out and finished 15th in my first start at Daytona in an ARCA car, and then nobody would be talking. So you go back now, and speedway racing has been something that's I have mixed emotions about. It's not my favorite style of racing. It's not the races that I enjoy most. But at the same time, we find a way to run well at them and to be calculated in our decisions and put ourselves in position to win them and to be close. And so we're still trying to figure out those closing laps and exactly how to do that. But it's just time, I suppose, and trying to figure out how to do it a little bit better the next time than I did the previous. So we're still learning every time we go to those places.
And on that note, just in last year's Daytona 500, with 2 laps to go in regulation, you actually made your move to the outside of Denny Hamlin, and you were side by side for the lead when there was a wreck behind you. How much does it stick in your craw that the timing of really what could have been a race-winning move for you just didn't work out?
Yeah, it hurts, but I mean that's just part of it. So, yeah, I mean we got to a point where I couldn't ask to be in a better position, and unfortunately it wasn't quite meant to be at that time. So, we're still up there in the first handful of spots at the end, and was in line with a couple of Fords coming down to the checker there, and with Ryan's accident there at the end and the way everything played out, it just nothing quite went exactly how we wanted to that race, right? So that being said, it was made the best decision that we could at the time and thought that was it. If everything would have stayed green, could that have been a way to win a 500? Possibly. There's no guarantee though. So it could have been the way that we got turned and ended up 35th at the end of that race. Yeah, I have no clue. So trying not to get too caught up on speculating what could have been. Ultimately, we know what it was, and now we try and figure out how to do it better this time and how to make it a win.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome.
Chris, thanks for taking the time to join us today, and good luck in the Great American Race.
Yeah, I appreciate it very much. Good, not necessarily seeing y'all, but talking to everybody, and hopefully we'll get to actually see everybody before too long here.
You gotcha. Okay, take care now.
See y'all.